unspoken system that has shaped America and chronicles how lives today are defined by a hierarchy of human divisions are told in a slightly fictionalized story directed by Ava DuVernay. Origin, which debuted in 2023, stars Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor, John Bernthal, Niecy Nash, Emily Yancey, Finn Whitrock, and Vera Farmiga in a sensational drama that was selected by our guesses, the Denises, for tonight's stop on the Micheaux mission. Denise, what have you to say of Origin?
So much. When we saw this movie, I was not prepared. Like I wasn't prepared for emotions. I went in thinking this was going to be like the book. It was going to be some kind of documentary. I was prepared for. I didn't, and let me tell you why. Because 2020 was so chaotic when it came out. You know, I work in the space of media, so I was dealing with a lot of imagery coming in, right? Because I deal in the space of photography and video, and having to make decisions, watching Black men get killed, people, you know, being beat up, and all kinds of stuff. So I was taking all that in real time. So I bought the book because I was like, I want to support this woman. I bought the book and I was like, I just can't today.
Right.
And so when I saw that the movie came out and Denise called me and I was like, oh, say less, let's do this. So when I came in with a space of intellect and ready to take in information. And as soon as I saw the hoodie, I was like, I remember looking at Denise like, what is this? You know, and then I knew like, oh, this is gonna be a ride. That was my first thought, was as soon as I recognized the first scene as to what was happening, I kind of got like a little lump in my throat, right? Because it brings you immediately back to that year, that time, and all the things that go with it. And I thought, what are we about to watch?
Right. Which
what she was doing in the film is what we as journalists often experience. So she was experiencing it the same way that folks who were doing the kind of work you were doing had to go through it. You had to watch.
Right, you had. You couldn't turn away. And what we're talking about at the beginning of the film, ladies and gentlemen, is the dramatization, or more or less, of the Trayvon Martin and his murder. It is definitely one of those things that you just feel like your hands getting.
I felt my stomach turn because I remember I was sitting on this side of Denise and I remember going, like I remember looking her dead in the face, like, and she was like, she was like, this we're gonna take this ride together. And then I kind of settled back in and you become the witness that you always are, right? Because when there's evidence and then there's excess, right? And so you become a witness when it's evidence. And so I'm like, we're right back in the witness seat. Yeah. And I'm going to take this ride because that's what you need to do. But it moved my stomach as soon as I realized what was happening. I was like, oh no.
Because they used the real 911 calls.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even before then, I was like, what am I about to see?
Yes.
Right.
Because we knew what was about to happen to that boy.
Yeah.
Right.
And they showed in the film, you see him in all of the humanity that was lost in the coverage of what happened to him. You saw that boy who could have been my son, my nephew, just getting something from the store, talking to his girlfriend, and it's raining or cold, and you put the hoodie on.
Or he just put his hoodie on.
You just put the hood up.
You know? Yeah. And it's interesting for those who haven't seen the film or aware of it. It's based on a book by Isabel Wilkerson that takes different moments in history, such as the Trayvon Martin murder, and even going back to Nazi Germany time,
Holocaust,
the Holocaust, and even go
in
Mississippi, and during Jim Crow era, and just looks at all these different pockets of racism, and then even on a global scale, and then along with looking at what is the root cause of that? Because we know that racism isn't just inherent. What is the root cause of racism?
And that's her whole point. When she does cast, she looks at whether or not it really is about racism. Is it about racism or is it about something else? And she looks at the Holocaust, she looks at Jim Crow, and she looks at what happens with the caste system in India and says, this is really about caste. Race just happens to be what's applied to it here or the way it's used in the States. But it's all the same thing about having one group of people that is separated from another group of people and then laws made to keep them separate for whatever the purpose is.
Right.
In the Holocaust, they decided to kill people, but again, they were not allowed to marry somebody who was not Jewish with somebody who was Jewish.
Right.
And the same thing here, and the same thing in India. And so she was trying to say it's not all about racism, it's about caste. Why that's important to her is the big question. And perhaps because if you can see it in a global way, you might be able to take a global approach to dealing with it and a connectedness between the people who are impacted by it, both those who think they're benefiting and those who are definitely not. So that's what I took from the book. I did read the book.
Oh, okay.
And I did read it in 2020 with a very angry group of Black women in a book club.
Because I remember you saying, do you want to read this book? And I was like, I bought it, but I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, I need to be in a space where I can, really take this in, but I wasn't ready in 2020, and it sat on my bookshelf. But when I watched, first of all, I had to go to movies twice, like in the theater. I needed the sound, the whole thing. The first time was so emotional. That I did not expect. And Denise told me, she was like, I heard this could be a little emotional. I was like, girl, I'm good. I schedule emotions on Thursday. I'm good. Like, I was just like, I don't need a tissue, girl, please. But by the end, she came in and I was like in her purse. So the first one was so like emotional. And I think I just related a lot to her because of the stage of life I'm in. You're dealing with parental stuff. You're dealing with a partner.
Because there's a lot of her personals entwined.
And I was not expecting that emotional thread and finesse. The way she did it was such a eloquent way to do it. I had to go see it a second time to look at the filming techniques. The first time, I noticed some things, but I was overwhelmed by what I saw. And I did not expect that. I felt so I was like, oh man, I get it together, Denise, but I just could not.
I think speaking of techniques, I think one of the first things that she does that magically captures that is that the movie is filmed. Everything is filmed on 16 millimeter film. And it instantly has that. It looks like memory because it looks like you remember, like the movies you will watch. So it automatically puts you in a comfortable place because this is what these are the memories that I remember. And then but it's this real stuff that's happening. And that really hits you hard, man.
Well, it's also, you've got real facts weaved in with other things. They called it a biodrama in one of the things that I read, and I was like, how smart was that to keep us engaged in this way? Because I think it's such a heavy people get turned off by talking about racism and race, and we did that in 2020. Like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, right? I feel like Black people don't have an opportunity to be tired and exhausted. I wake up Black, I go to bed Black, I leave the house Black, I get pulled over Black, right? Every Black person has a plan when they get pulled over. I do, I throw my keys, right? It's a whole thing. But I think this was a way to bring people back into the conversation because there's so much woven into it just about life. Right? And I just didn't expect that. I thought I was going to see some hard facts. Yes, you're right. Nicely done. But it had so much life in it.
The relationships were amazing. I mean, the life we talk about is it focuses on Isabel, and it's got her mom, that relationship, and dude who had Black man swagger without trying.
Her husband.
Yes.
Brent.
Her cousin. Oh my God, that
Yes, the
relationship.
cousin.
I know that.
Yes.
I personally know that relationship.
Yes.
So she magically gave us some reality through these characters, these people, and I think that's part of what made it a little bit easier for her to deliver the things that she talked about, because we looked at how this woman did the research to write Cast and what fueled her in many ways. I thought I've already loved Ava DuVernay. She got another notch from me this time.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about her as a filmmaker, and I think the beginning scene captured, because as you said, just her control of pacing and tone and iconography. Like, as you said, as soon as you saw him get the candy, as soon as you see the hood, like Ava DuVernay is well aware of what these images mean. And I think, just to backtrack a moment, what this means for her audience that she's aiming towards. I think Ava DuVernay, from film to film, very unapologetically is centering a Black audience. Like, everyone can come see this film, but understand this is my first audience, this Black audience, so that they know as soon as they see this hood, as soon as they see, this young man and the can't, like, they already know where it's going. And I've said this before about Ava DuVernay, whether we're talking about something like When They See Us or Fruitvale Station, it's ironically a testament to her filmmaking. I find a lot of it very difficult to watch because she's so good at, sort of pulling out these emotions. And like you, I read the book, so I was expecting the book and how she kind of weaves in Isabel Wilkerson's life is, was so smart. Because Isabel Wilkerson is such an interesting, like what I said last night when I finished is like, this, obviously it's a great film, but quite honestly, I wanted to see the further adventures of Isabel Wilkerson, globe-trotting journalist and researcher, and sort of, what's like. I wish they had made a movie adaptation of her first book. Where, I like,
Father Son.
Like I wanted to see her in these libraries in the South and pulling these archives out.
Maybe she will.
Right, because it's, I thought it was this really interesting tension in a film about caste and about how we all kind of navigate this caste system and racism and sexism because she's a Black woman, but like her personal life.
God.
She has, outside of all of the tragedy and challenges that she has to face, just as you said, just at this moment in your life, just aging parents and just the age that you are, your peers are going through health crises. But, she has, these beautiful clothes. She gets to travel. She goes to 2 wonderful parties. Yes. And it's like, wow, she's actually really kind of cool. Yeah. So I love that tension.
Yeah, but even when she went to those wonderful parties and she dressed up, right? There's some masking there, right? Absolutely. So she stood outside when that I think it's a medium shot or a close-up shot of her taking that deep breath.
Yes.
And
I was
she
like,
actually
Jesus.
begins to smile.
Yes, right? She puts the mask on and she walks in and I was like, my God. Like it was just such, that's why I said it's so familiar, right? Of being in spaces where you need to be careful how you phrase it in order for people to receive it, right? So when she goes to pitch her idea, she's like, she's pitching it a certain way, obviously differently than what she would tell her sister cousin, right? And that conversation that they had. But it is the mask that we wear. It is the costume that we wear in these occasions where we have to communicate in a certain way in a certain space to get done what we need done.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's interesting. I definitely saw the mask in that, but I also saw the kind of like a little bit of a callback to the earlier party that you saw her with because she was with her husband at that time.
Right.
Yeah. And like he was, like she was on his arm.
Yes.
And, he, even though she was talking to the same people, but he was there in the conversation. He kind of like held back because, a little bit, but you could always feel that he was there, and off camera, like she was kind of like reaching back and his hand was there.
Yeah.
And I felt a lot of that in that moment where she's breathing, or there was another moment where she is about to board the plane.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
For the second time. A lot of callbacks to their relationship. And I thought that was really, really smartly done, because this was actually the second time that I had seen the film. Yeah. And I had remembered John Bernthal being in the movie much longer than he was, but that is how impactful his performance is. He really is gone before the third of the movie is over.
I loved him because Black, White, or Indifferent, the man that a lot of Black women desire is protection.
Yes.
Right? Black, White, or Indifferent, he offered her that protection even when the guy was in the in the yard, right? And he would give her a gentle check. And it wasn't like so dominating where you're like, who are you talking to, right? It was just, their vibe was visible on screen.
Because what he was protecting was the space for her to be herself.
Yes.
He was not, infusing like, be yourself.
Yes, and I loved it.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I actually, it's funny watching this film, the scene where she finds, a little bit of spoiler alert, that he's gone.
Yeah.
Watching this, every time I watch this movie, I'm like, I got to introduce my sisters to this movie.
Yeah.
And then that scene comes up, and you talk about real. That's how my sister found my brother-in-law. And I'm like, this is like...
Maybe
not. She might not.
Yeah. Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. But that is a credit to, like you said, the performance of Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor in that moment, and the smart directions of just dead all sound.
Right. They did that in Selma, right? They did that in Selma. They also did it in Crash. Remember? He thinks he's getting shot and he screams and there's no sound. Like, I love that technique for film because it allows you to go, right? You can hear the gasp of the audience. Yeah, it's just such a
the theater, that emptiness of that sound. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I loved about that moment is that she runs to him and she's tripping over the bed.
She falls over that
because it's and that's the real. It's the real.
Yeah, that's the real of it. Yeah. Yeah, that was that. I mean, it was that moment. There's a moment where, those in between transitions where she's laying on the grass. The thing that almost took me out of here, the thing that almost broke me completely down, was the mother's hand on her face. Because, when I go home, sometimes it's rough. I lay on my mom's lap and she rubs my face just like that, right? And then the repetition of that when the little boy was laying in the grass and she rubbed his face, right? And that is such a mama auntie move. When we came in here, you said there was a lot of mama energy, right? But that is such a mom caretaker auntie move, that gentle touch of the hand on your face, on your back or something. That just it's you're going to be okay, and that almost took me out of here. It was those little details, that really, that was the emotional part, which is why I had to go back the second time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I found that I could tell when I was about to lose something. I felt like I was about to lose my mother. I was about to lose my cousin. And so the tears came before the scene for me very often.
Yeah.
And it was same as like with Fruitvale Station. And it just felt like she knew how to invite me into moments I've already experienced. But I'm in this theater. I'll still be breathing afterwards, but the breathing may be painful.
Again, that's that Ava DuVernay. She gets you every time.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what kind of foreshadowing it is, but you do. It's like on some level, like on a subconscious level, you feel it before you actually acknowledge it.
Yes.
And then you're there in the midst of it.
When Niecy Nash coughed when they were talking, I said, oh my gosh, she's going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the tears they started to build up.
But the details of having the Schweppes ginger ale by the bedside,
exactly.
I was like, this is so black. You know, like it's these little details.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was like that for, what was that movie where she goes to Italy, she falls in love, they adopt a child. What was that movie?
Yes.
It was a chef thing. But you know that was done by a black producer because the black women are in bonnets.
Right.
You know, there's these little black details that culturally we know, you know, and so that having Ava do this movie was I had that beautiful feeling of like Schweppes, yes, like this is all of this is familiar, all those details. You know?
And I could be missing it, but I think that when Niecy Nash's character coughs, you've already got a sense that there's something wrong.
Right. Yes.
Right. But what I picked up the second time around is that the hints are a little bit there because she's kind of like on point, strong, you know, cousin in the beginning, but then slowly and surely, like she's at the pharmacy, you know, getting a prescription. And then at the cookout, unexplained, now she's walking with a cane.
Exactly.
You know, it's just that slow deterioration that you're seeing, you know, like if you only focus on the face, she's fine.
Yep.
But then you just look a little bit outside and you're like, something's happening.
Yep. And then when she coughs, she puts the oxygen. You're like, wait a minute.
Right.
How did we get here?
And Aunjanue Ellis and Niecy Nash are so good together.
Yeah.
You just are enjoying them talking to each other.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
And you're figuring, like, you know, you've seen aspects of this movie before. When Niecy Nash is, you know, cradling her in the bed.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, don't leave. Like, you're figuring, all right, this is going to be the strong one for you for this movie.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And you're like, ooh.
Right. Certainly, you're not going to take the cousin too.
Right.
Right.
You know, but that's real. Now, I'm curious, how do you think that connected with, well, first of all, 'cause if I understand, that's not in the book.
No.
None of that, all of that, I mean, it's real.
He doesn't go into as much detail about what's going on in behind the scenes.
Right, her life.
We don't learn about her life in the book.
Right.
It is strictly pretty much what she sees and learns as she's doing this research.
So how do you feel the connection was made between the book and what the book is about and her life?
So just from the little bit of reading that I've done, Ava sat down with her.
Yes.
And, you know, tell me what happened, right? Yeah. And so the creative genius of making that the thread is Ava's gift. You know, I think that's her gift to us, is making this palatable and making this so relatable that you can't look away. So she is kind of her, right? In this anthropology space, where she is unearthing things that, how do you do the things you do, right? Nobody really knows what happens to you when you go home, right? But all those things build up to make you guys what you are. Right. And so that was so, you know, very smart of Ava to ask these questions. And then you put a beautiful actress who has this experience to come and bring it to life. So I think that research prior to writing or as she was writing the script was just gold.
Yeah, I love the way she integrated what was going on behind the scenes and the actual story. Does it mirror the book exactly? No, the book is how many pages? I forget.
It's like 400 or 500 pages.
Yes.
It's a big book.
It was 20-some hours to listen to on Audible. So there's only so much of that you can put in a film. Yeah. And she can do long films well.
Right.
But I think she integrated the story really well. I felt like I understood why she and how she saw those connections. And I also understood her developing relationship with all these folks and her connection to them, to their joy and their pain. You know, when she was in India, I was just blown away by her connections. Even looking at the story of this young scholar who talked about MLK. You know, but my biggest takeaway, if I could, because I don't want to forget this, is the Untouchables and the scene.
Dallas.
Yes, with him having to be in the crap and then being touched by somebody with oil.
Yeah, that the touchings, that as he's greasing him down with mustard oil, I would imagine just seeing the touch and how he was responding. Like, he puts his head back at some point.
Yes.
And how he's responding to being touched as he is an untouchable. That was just
Powerful stuff.
Powerful, yeah.
I think it's a good introduction to the book. I think it's, you know, the book is so dense and has so much. And, you know, like you said, there's no way, like there's no way you can transfer the book into a movie. Like frankly, you would have had to have done a mini series to cover, because she goes into so much detail with the caste system in the book. Like, she has this wonderful story where Isabel Wilkerson has developed this relationship now, and she becomes a scholar who speaks on caste, and she goes to a conference in India with a bunch of Indian scholars who, you know, just by definition, we reject caste. But Wilkerson says just because of the way they all move, like, she can tell who defers to whom, that she can tell who's in what caste, or rather who was born in what. Like, even if you've rejected it, this is just in your bones. And she, you know, goes into so much detail about that. They, you know, they touch on it in the book. It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing that I pull from caste that I talk about every chance I get, where she talks about the Nazis coming to America.
Yes.
Basically learning the mechanics of racism from Americans. But they kind of allude to it. But there are two things that the Nazis said, y'all too wild in America for us. Like, I forgot what, you know, it's like, so mulatto, which is a word we don't use, but it's biracial. Quadroon is somebody who was 1/4 black. Octoroon is 1/8 black.
Right.
But apparently there are terms that go all the way to 1/64
Really?
black. And the Nazis said, yeah, that's too crazy for us.
Y'all gone too far.
Like,
y'all gone
that's
too far.
too crazy. And we're Nazis.
Right.
Yes.
The second thing, and they kind of showed it in there where they had the picnic around the lynching.
Oh, yeah.
And they were taking pictures. The Nazis said, we want to exterminate the people that we hate too, but this whole public thing that y'all do where you have a party, that's wild.
Yeah, they reject
We not doing that.
in the book.
And we're Nazis.
Right.
So it's that kind of level of detail. And she, you know, she talks about those two wonderful anthropologists, the two black anthropologists.
Oh, yeah.
What they deal with. So, you know, obviously in a book, you get so much more detail.
Yeah.
But, you know, frankly, if you had to make a movie, much like you all, I really like the decision to fold Isabel Wilkerson's life into, because like I said, I just wanted to know, like I thought it was such a celebration of her and an acknowledgement of her. So, but you got to read the book.
Yeah.
So then why do you think that this film, which famously you're talking about the book, a lot of studios, they passed on it for Ava DuVernay. She basically had to go to grants and use even some of her own money to get it made, which allowed her the full control that she would want anyway, to make the movie that she wanted and get it out there. Why do you think that the movie, as great as it was, did not get the eyeballs that it deserved?
I think people are emotionally fatigued. And I think it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I think if you are not of color or of a other, right? I think you have a choice, right? You have a choice whether you can help participate or engage in the conversation or not. You know, I hear people say, Denise, I'm just tired. I need to take a break from this. And I say, okay, take a break and come back. I cannot take a break. Right? And so I think people are emotionally fatigued Maybe she didn't have, I know she raised like $35 million. Yeah. So it's not a budget that's going to push and push like other films. But I think the emotional fatigue of it all. And if you read the book, like me, I was thinking it was going to be more of a documentary and not
be
Yeah.
something you're going to go to the movie to see.
Exactly.
Right.
I think it's the kind of movie that doesn't necessarily get the viewership, doesn't get the people in the seats the way some others do, because it is so heavy, or they anticipate that it'll be heavy. I don't think it was as heavy as I thought it would be because it wove her life into it.
Yeah, but it ain't light.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I actually thought I actually disagree with you. Like, I think it was very heavy. Like, I'm not, I don't very lightly use a term like trigger warning, but I do think, much like you all, frankly, I was blindsided by the Trayvon Martin snippet at the beginning.
Right.
Like, I was not prepared at all. And then, maybe you hate to bring your own biography, because I have an 8-year-old son.
Yeah.
Like, the final part with Al Bright and the way, that dehumanizing moment with this little boy.
Yeah.
Like, it's a hard film.
Yeah.
And I don't think...
And that's a closing story.
Right. Like, I don't, I think people can probably tell by our conversations that we're all admirers of the craft in this film. We are admirers of the story that is being told. But, much like you said, you've had conversations with people, and we've talked about this through the years. Frankly, I grant Black people the space to say, I deal with so much every day that for my own mental, health, there are some things I'm just not going to engage. And I think that was a decision that a lot of people made with this film.
Yeah.
That I just can't deal with this, with everything else that's going on. And, quite honestly, I can respect that, because this is a hard film.
I hear you. And I do believe people need to take care of themselves. I think we also need to not close our eyes to opportunities to see whatever our realities are from various perspectives, especially if it can be helpful. Now, does that mean I think everybody should have run out and seen Cast? No, I mean, Origin? No. I'm not saying that at all. But I struggle with what's happening when people get tired. Then they don't necessarily go out and vote.
Sure.
And then you wind up with somebody who puts folks on the Supreme Court who overturn things that protect us. So I know it's kind of a leap, but to me, this was not as painful for me as reading the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I had the exact opposite. That's why there are 4 of us up here talking.
Right.
Now, the film was painful. And I cried a lot because it was condensed.
Right.
But in the book, it was very painful to see that this is so obvious.
Yeah.
And we still, no matter how much we show, it's still not enough.
Yeah.
For folks to say, okay, let's pivot.
But that's the reason why, despite agreeing with you about people's self-care for themselves, I would say that I do want people to go out and see this film. Because I think the idea that it contextualizes about race and looking at it from a caste system and breaking it down more historically and globally, I think that is a lesson that people need to experience, because let's keep it real, more people are more likely to see the movie than read the book.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So, and I think that while it's a good introduction into the book, I think there's enough of the book to at least get you just thinking, looking at things a little different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And I love the idea at the end talking about the weaving of her life. And it's at the end with the sale of her mother's house and talking about how there's, we all live in this house that has some structure, but
Yeah, I didn't build it, but it's mine to take care of now.
gotta take care of.
I didn't have slaves, but racism still exists. I got to do something with it.
Exactly, and I loved that, and then her walking out the house and I think moments like that are what we need.
Yeah,
and I mean, and I don't mean just every black person. I mean everyone, every white people. It doesn't matter. Everyone needs to. I think needs this movie because I think the conversation is one that we all collectively need to have.
Look, sometimes you got to take strong medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. But with that being said, the question we now have arrived to is, would you recommend that people see
Would I?
Origin? Yes.
Absolutely. I called so many people when I left that theater. I thought it was also smart. She did, what was it called? Seat 16 or 16 seat or something where you could buy somebody a ticket. Absolutely.
And then they showed the thing at the end where she talked about the film.
Yeah. Did you see the version where she gives like her thoughts, the film?
No, I didn't see that version.
Okay, so when I went with Denise, she talked before the film, kind of like Scorsese in Flower Moon, and then she talked after.
Okay.
And so she talked after. It was almost like she was taking a few questions. But I love that she had set up that seat 16 or whatever it's called, so you could gift it to people. I called my parents who, they're born in 48 and 49, right? 74 and 75. So I just wanted everybody to see. I wanted to be in discussion about this, but not only because it was well done. Technically, the filming, we haven't even touched on the transitions, how she did the transitions in the library and the photo there are so many beautiful filmmaking techniques, but the content of it, the storyline of it, I wanted everybody to see it so we can have these conversations, which is like, I get that you're emotionally fatigued, but you can't look away. Right. And I know there's some black people that are like, Denise, I can't watch any more of these videos of our black men getting shot. And I'm like, well, who will?
Yeah.
Right. Who will watch? Who will tell the story if not us? I understand you're fatigued and you can't see everyone, maybe, but don't turn a blind eye to this. Don't turn a blind eye to Haiti. Right. Right. So, it's not in the news cycle anymore. Yeah. Right. But it's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
A blind eye, journalistically, was turned Palestinians.
So it's. I wanted people to be in these conversations. I wanted people to see this film. I want people to still see this film. Yeah. So that I want it to show in schools. Like I feel like this is one of those films that are conversation starters, and will take you through a cup of coffee or a cup of tea.
Yes.
Right, and that you should be having with your friends.
Indeed.
Yeah, I agree with the schools thing as long as there's some good leadership in the conversation because in these schools, they're learning how to deal with active shooter. So if you're going to learn how to deal with active shooter, which is a traumatic thing to think about, let's learn some history and perhaps, because this delivers the message of you have an option to do something with this, like you're talking about, were you there to build the house? No, but you live in it and you're responsible for it. So I agree. I think it would be good for older children to see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's an important film. It's an important film. It is a film that is necessary, but even just within the context of our usual conversations, at this point, I think it is fair to say Ava DuVernay is a master filmmaker.
Yes,
absolutely.
So just from the level of I enjoy film, I enjoy black film, I enjoy watching the product of someone who has mastered their craft. This is you have to watch Ava DuVernay films, and this is not, this is yet another example of one you have to watch. Aunjanue Ellis is
stunning.
She's gotten to the point now where it's almost, I always talk about Stevie Wonder in the 70s, where you just sort of took him for granted after a while.
Right.
Like, she's just amazing in every single solitary thing she does. Yeah. And she has the singular performance in this film. Like, she's almost in every frame of the film. and she, you know, it's amazing. So just on that level, I think you have to watch this film. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to call out Emily Yancey, who plays her mother.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This film.
Yeah.
She does some amazing work. I know we talked about Leslie Uggams in American Fiction.
Yeah, how about that?
This is another woman who hasn't really gotten her flowers as an actress, but
Audrey McDonald.
Audrey McDonald.
oh, just one little spot. Oh, that story.
And Blair Underwood has on this weird bow tie that somehow, because he's Blair Underwood,
It works.
he pulls it off.
Why does he still look good at this age?
He's a vampire.
Right?
So there you go, Blair Underwood in a tuxedo.
Yeah, you can't.
Vampire. We all know this.
Yeah, so
He was a pushy editor too. It was like, it takes too long. I'm like, wait a minute, Blair.
But that's what a good editor does.
nudging.
Yeah,
Nudging.
you know, I'm a bow tie, so we gonna let him have it.
Right.
Oh, because he was wearing a bow tie. Okay. All right. Do you own a bow tie?
I own a bow tie.
I tied one already, but you tie it yourself.
I tied myself. Well,
Okay.
Hey, whoa, okay, easy.
He put the uncle voice on.
Right.
All right, uncle.
No. I follow the James Bond rule of bow ties. Rule 1, get a bow tie. Rule 2, get a beautiful woman to tie the bow tie for
There
you.
you go.
So I just put it on and go and stand in front of like, it's honey.